one of the first things that I want to talk about is the transformative effect of prayer. A lot of people, let me just mention this, that I saw, from an influencer that's more in the natural and like, in the Gaia, and not that she doesn't believe in God, but she doesn't pray. She would usually meditate. And then suddenly she made a post and saying that she started to pray, and praying to a person, to a personality, and asking for something,
Yeah.
and the transformation that had. And that before she wouldn't pray, it was more like, oh no, we're all part of, which we are, we're all part of this energy, and maybe we don't need to pray. But I want to hear on your take on what a prayer can do and its transformative effect.
Well, we all know what white blood cells do. They proliferate and they kind of go off on their own, and they become destructive to the body. And this is what Lucifer's rebellion was all about. He became destructive. You notice it's interesting that I'll get back to the prayer aspect and the Father, but if you think about what happened when the rebellion happened, they cut off, they quarantined the 38 or so planets that joined in the rebellion. Okay, that's a high concept, I know, but that in essence is like a cancerous cell in a body. And what happens when you get a virus on your computer and you want to keep it from spreading? You quarantine it from other computers. You shut it off so that it can't infect the network. So from that perspective, we are all part of the supreme, which is the evolutionary aspect of deity, the experiential experiment that God is doing. He wants us all to participate in the growth of the universe. So prayer is more or less just staying in contact with that source. And we do it because God is a personality, as we are personalities. So on that higher level of personality connection, prayer is the mechanism that allows you to communicate with God. Now, I will add this. I was shocked to find out did you know that when you're in prayer or deep meditation, that your pineal gland actually excretes a substance in your brain? Did you know that?
No,
And that
I
came
did.
from a Urantia book reader. I think her
I
name is Jenny
didn't.
Martin. Yeah.
I
There's
did know
actually,
that there's something that goes in the brain, but not exactly this. But this is logical, that there's something that
if you go
secretes.
back, it's one of the earlier episodes. I was shocked, and the only reason I ran across the article, I forget who turned me onto it. It might have been Joshua Wilson or something. It's like, that's a physical mechanism. The Urantia book says that the thought adjuster, the spirit of God, the fragment, lies in the citadel of your mind. It's deep within the citadel, and it emerged when Andon and Fanta for the first time worshipped. The actual act of worshiping created the mechanism by which we could communicate. It's kind of like when you turn your Bluetooth on.
Yeah, there's the connection maybe, and it's very interesting. And I like that you made the Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi, or even the radio signals. It's very interesting when I was a kid to kind of comprehend where that signal was emitting and how it was just being received by your radio, and then you start there's airwaves, and it's the same thing, and how can you prove radio waves if you can't see them? Then how can you prove this connection, this prayer, and this dialogue that you're having with God, because it's also invisible?
And he's responsive. That's the amazing thing, is in the greatness of his all-ofness, he's responsive to every single prayer or act of worship. He wants that connection. And I say he because he's described as the Father. The Father is the highest human concept. And so they use that. I know a lot of people say, oh, the Great Mother. Look, I'm not going to debate the gender identity of God, but that would be
Yeah,
a
that's
fool's
another
errand.
yeah,
Let's just say it's beyond sex, okay? Maybe
exactly,
it's just
exactly.
beyond sex. But there
Yeah,
is a mother spirit, which is the infinite spirit, which sponsors the seraphim who cater to us and aid us and give us comfort and give us guidance. There is that motherly aspect of the universe as it is expressed in the conjoint actor, the mother spirit.
which, and let me make this parenthesis, and good that you bring it. Yeah, there is a sort of, maybe not in the sex, as like you're saying, in the male female way that we see it, but there is a male female
Sure. Yeah,
aspect
even in
to the universe. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
correct.
There is this part, but we're talking about the first source and center, the one that, where everything stems out, the controller, the upholder. For it's like where everything revolves around. So how do we connect? And this is interesting because, I mean, the concept of us as mortals, we're the farthest away, the personalities that are the farthest away from, and spiritually, the spirits are the farthest away from the personal center. But at the same time, we have that fragment of God, that divine within us, where we can communicate. So I want to hear your take on this, on how we can communicate with God. How can we pray? That's a big question.
Yeah. Well, it's a natural, each of us has the natural ability to pray, just as we have the natural ability to want to feel safe or feel loved. You don't have to teach somebody how to love somebody, but you want to be in a right environment with music or nature. I mean, the Urantia book and other books will tell you that when you want to get into that mood, there is a difference, I think, and I'm not an expert at this, but, there are people who meditate, they do yoga. And I think in many of the people that do that, it's not a personal experience in the action of you reaching out to another person. It's more of a meditative state of mind that calms the anxiety of the day, which is great. It serves a purpose. But imagine if you could kick it up a notch and you took it from meditation to prayer, and then you took it from prayer to worship, because prayer is talking back and forth. Worship is for its own sake. You're just giving homage to the Creator. You're just appreciating the nature of God and the existence of God.
There's not that communication. You're just worshiping. What I hear worship is when you fall in awe, and I've had those moments where, especially when everything clicks, I think we all have those in life when, you're struggling and suddenly, boom, everything clicks and you just fall in awe. That's worship, right?
Yeah, that has a real calming effect. So, but it's important that, and the reason that prayer, and I wanted to talk about it is because I have a lot of, let's just say I have a lot of experience with people who suffer greatly from all kinds of mental illness. And the common denominator that I have seen over and over again is that many people who suffer from anxiety or mental illness, they also lack a clear belief in spiritual faith, or they've been taught that religion is not something that's for them. And to me, when you think of all the money and all the resources we put into treating people with mental illness with drugs that basically mask the symptom of the pain that you might be feeling, whether it's anxiety, whether depression, whatever it is, right? We put a pill in somebody's hand and you say, take it, you'll feel better. But study after study shows that people who have faith, strong faith, suffer the least from mental illness. It doesn't mean that they don't have mental illness, especially if it's neurological or if it's nutritional. There's a lot of ways you can make your body sick. And the Urantia book talks to this. It says if you have clean habits, you eat well because your body is a system that we've created for you. So give it optimum nutrition and it'll serve you well. It'll give you a great immune system. And if in good habits, thinking habits is also important too.
Thinking habits as well. Very important.
And you have to, when you start to feel down, you have to be able to touch something that will get you back up. And prayer does that. Prayer will give you that ability to re-energize your spiritual battery that sustains you as you're dealing with all the complicated currents of life.
Yeah, it's not that it's going to solve the issues, and sometimes you wish or you pray it would, but it gives you that, that energy.
It's like a vitamin.
In Spanish we say templanza. I don't know the exact translation, but templanza means that sturdiness. It gives you that steadfastness. I think is the word. Resilience.
Yeah, I read a quote the other day that said the spirit fragment's job is not to make your life easy.
I saw that. It's to make it complicated enough for you to foster the thought, and yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and many people will pray when life is at its extreme, some tragedy. Yeah. I was watching some guy that I follow on Instagram, and he said he lost his dog today, and he was very depressed because the dog had been in his life for 14 years. And he said, the one thing I want to know is, do the dogs go to heaven? That would make me feel better, But, prayer should not be always about what you want. It should also be about what's the right choice.
Yeah.
And also I would say this, one of the things that I admired, probably the characteristic that I admired most about Jesus as a human, is that he had no problem with living with God every single day. He was almost like in a constant state of communion. And I think when you adopt this connection, it's not that difficult because it's about the decisions you're making. And if you always ask yourself before making any decision, is this the right decision? Is this the best decision? That actually makes your life a whole lot easier, because if you're constantly trying to do the right thing. It's only when you are doing all the wrong things that problems happen, right?
Yeah, that you kind of realize where it jumps in your face, right?
And none of us are going to make, my feeling is if in the course of your life, if 51% of the time you made the right decision, I would call that a victory,
Yeah, exactly. And
because that's, we're
yeah,
not perfect, you know.
yeah,
But
and
prayer, I think, is a good call for today because there's so much consternation going on in the world, and we're awash in materialism. And I just think that for a lot of people, if I could tell them any message, I would say, the power is within you. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and tap into that source, and it will serve you well.
now I wanted to go into the mechanics of prayer, and this is how I do it, and I don't know how you do it, but and I think there is a mechanic to prayer. The first thing I do is of course, I'm in a quiet space, but I reset. Even when I'm in the ocean, that's where I love to pray. When I go into the ocean or the sea, because I'm in the Mediterranean, so there's not an ocean. But I go in there and then I lie on the water, and there I pray, because I think that's where the balance of the universe is. I always seen the water and the waves as the breath of the universe. So that's where I see the energy exchanging.
Yeah.
But I start with the Lord's Prayer. And I think I've adapted the Lord's Prayer to my own. I've added stuff, I've modified stuff, I'm kind of personalized that, and that's like an invocation. I start with that. That's what gets me into that that mindset. And
Yeah.
then I start with and I continue with giving thanks for everything, specifically for something specific at that time. Then I ask for specific things that are beyond my reach, beyond my hands. And then I ask for, how can I change? What are the things that I need to change? What are the lessons that I need to? And I ask specifically, there's something conflicting me, if there's a decision, if there's something that's beyond, that I need. So it takes me to those phases. I don't know if that happens to you, but I think you have to give it it's not just saying, oh, I want to have this.
Well, everybody has a way of getting to that space, and that's the commonality, is that you kind of eliminate the outside noise so you can have a private, personal conversation with your Father. But on the other hand, I prayed from rooftops overlooking Los Angeles. I prayed on airplanes before they take off. There's all, I'm not going to let the fact that I can't get to a quiet space prevent me from having a word.
Yeah, exactly. No, you have that conversation, but there's like quiet conversation, noisy conversation. But I think that's the important thing. And you were saying about Jesus, that constant communion. And I like the word communion, not in the traditional way, but it's this it is the traditional way. It's this communion that you're communing with God.
It is. It's keeping the lines open, really. And I'm reading here that just a quote that references the fact that also the Son of God, is involved in this process too, because the Son, it actually goes to him first, but since he and
Okay.
God are one, that eventually will. But I wish I could find it. It's a good quote. You worship God, pray to and commune with the Son, and work out the details of your earthly sojourn. Let's see what it says here. Kind of ... And you work out the conditions of your life. I wish I could find it, but my eyes they failed me again.
Oh, but that's good. That's the process of how it goes.
Well, it's a physical thing that's actually occurring, and that's what I like about the quote, is that you are sending a message, and the message is received. And I think the UB, and certainly the Bible and other books, will always affirm the fact that prayer is a bona fide way of communicating on a spiritual level. And we are challenged by that because we're not true spiritual beings. We are mortal. We are human. What does it say about the poisons of the spirit? Jealousy, fear, envy. Fear is probably our worst enemy. It is the one that it tricks the mind into thinking the worst possible outcomes. And fear is what drives, why do we have insurance? Because we fear that we're going to get sick, right? Although it's a good thing sometimes, if it's not
Yeah.
overpriced. Why do we have car insurance? Because it's not because we think we're going to get into an accident. It's because we fear we might get into an accident. And so in the same way, fear also prevents us from reaching God because we might be wrong. Maybe he doesn't exist. Maybe I'm wasting my time. And after 300 years of secularism, it's easy to understand why people don't pray. I feel that our earth will get better if more people are just given the permission to petition God. You have the right to petition your Father. And in that statement, you're restoring the dignity of the human being. And that's what Jesus did. He
Okay.
restored the dignity of human being by telling us you're not only just children of a materialistic universe, you're also a child. You're a living child of the extension of deity. He made you in his image so that you would be able to communicate with him.
What you're saying is very, very interesting about the dignity. That's something that, and we were conversing the other day in the Spanish podcast that we were talking about burnout, and one of the important things that the concepts of why burnout happens is that you lose your dignity, and this is what secularism in the material world has done to the individual. You get into this rut, working, and then you're just a number, and you lose that dignity. And when you do that, when you just become a number and not an individual, that's where you lose your personality, and you
Well,
just
think about the people of Los Angeles or anywhere. Think of what's the capital of Spain? Madrid. Yeah, it's a sprawling metropolitan, and every day people get in their cars for 3 hours just sitting there, and all you see is a line of cars. It's hard not to feel undignified or without dignity.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just sitting there. You're like a cattle.
It's a system, and the system breaks you, and I think that's very important. It's very important in our days to not fall into that system, and prayer is one of those things to keep yourself out of that system and give yourself that worth, I believe.
Yeah,
that
it's an
dignity.
antidote to moral despair. That's what it is. Prayer is an antidote to moral. And there's again, going back to what we said before, if it's true that in our pineal gland, which lies at the very center of our brain, if it actually does release some sort of a chemical agent that calms the mind, reduces anxiety, increases blood flow, whatever that mechanism is, it was designed to do that. It was put into us. And it was that first act. That's why it's so significant about what Andon and Fanta were, because the world was filled with well, they were the first two to pray, and they were more advanced than their father and mother. But it was that mental ability to pray and seek for guidance. And then they went north because they were directed to move north away from their hairy cousins.
Well, that's basically what really initiated the human species, that the ability to pray, wasn't it?
Yeah, they made a big deal about it too.
Yeah.
Remember, after that, like the next day at noon, we're told that there was a big celebration, and they made the announcement, and they sent the news to, I guess it was the Most High of Adentia, and they sent a congratulations on Urantia 606. We finally produced two human beings that are capable of worshiping deity. That was such a major event for them. And then, of course, the life carriers, they stood back. After that moment, they said, well, now we can't interfere with the process anymore.
Yeah, they did their work. They did their work, and now if this is what you're hearing sounds crazy, it might sound, but it's a part of the lost history that you can find about, or you can read about, or you can listen to Jim's podcast about, because he talks a lot about this, or you can read the book on it. I mean, these sections are very interesting on prayer. Exactly. I don't know. It's part 3. I don't know exactly. And we do have the Urantia pod as well. So maybe if you don't want to read it, we do have the Urantia part where we have people discussing this, and you can hear more details. So check it out. You're going to also, if you look at our link tree, you're going to find the Urantia pod and the Urantia tutor that can help you with that. So anything that you don't understand from what Jim and I are saying, you can find the answers. I mean, that's the point. So coming back to what we were saying, yes, prayer, I think, was fundamental. So, I mean, if it was such an important tool, why? I mean, we need to use it. That's where I get the necessity in our day, mostly, that we need to use it, because if not, we're going to get lost. And you see a lot of despair in people because of that.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you are a particular religion either. I mean, most religions have some allowance or encouragement of seeking that divine connection, whatever that divine connection means to you. So